record on the computer. And hey, everybody, welcome to Busted Los Angeles virtual road tour. Today, we're going to the city that never sleeps, that never drives, that can't find parking space, the Big Apple, New York City, for the Busted Apple debut, New York City in the virtual Port Authority and virtual Madison Square Garden. Yeah! Awesome. Then we'll do an abbreviated version of our theme song. Bus riders are better than drivers, way, way better than drivers. So much. Okay, welcome to Busted. I haven't actually written the rest of that song yet. It's because, that's hard. Busted is true stories about getting around LA and other American cities, told by people who don't drive. These are stories that take place on trains, buses, skateboards, bicycles, walking, horseback, even canoes, we had a little putt boat story a couple weeks back. So you can even have those. It's any way of getting around but driving. We've been doing the show for 8 years in Los Angeles. We were the original outdoor storytelling show. And we look forward to bringing it back to our home terminal, which is Stories, Books, and Cafe in Echo Park on Los Angeles on Sunset Boulevard. Stories is awesome, and you can look them up on Google. You can order books if you live in New York City, or if you visit Los Angeles, come down to Echo Park and visit the bookstore. I'm sure there's something awesome going on there, and it's the coolest part of the city. So I'm really excited to be in New York. We've been taking the show on the road virtually for the last month or so, and we're going around to different places. We did Boston, we're in New York, we're going to go to San Francisco, Chicago, Europe, and all the cool places that we can't afford to go to typically because we're all on a bus rider's budget. But this is pretty exciting, and we get to take advantage of this new technology. And I, for one, have barely been to New York. I've been to New York maybe a half dozen times, 10 times. I grew up in Boston, so New York is right there. But really, Boston's my city and LA is my city. But you go to New York City and you're going to ride the trains, and there's no getting around it. And for me, it's kind of weird because in Los Angeles, the notion of being a bus rider and a train rider is kind of exotic. Like, I've actually been on NPR before on All Things Considered, and they interviewed me, and the whole subject was like about me riding the train. And my sister and her family was in town from New Jersey, and he is he's a corporate attorney in Manhattan, and he rides the train every day. And my niece goes to NYU, so she rides the train every day. And they're like, why is All Things Considered doing this story on you? Like, we ride the train every day. There's nothing special about you. Oh, come on now. Oh man, Yankees, that's triggering me as a native Bostonian. But I guess you got to expect that when you go to New York City. You can't go to New York and wear a Red Sox hat. I know that. That's why I'm wearing my Cream magazine hat. Boy, howdy. But every time I go to New York, I come back with a story because it's just so weird. And even though the New Yorkers that, for them, riding the train is kind of a daily routine, I know that they have stories as well, because New York is just, there's so many people, and it's such a melting pot. And it's the same situation where you don't get to pick and choose who's sitting next to you. And so you just have that random spontaneity, and life happens. And often that results in really interesting stories. So I'm really excited for the guests that we have here today. We have a native New Yorker who moved to LA, who's a regular on Busted, Chris Korbel, who'll be joining us in a bit. We have Katya Duft, who's always on Busted, my right-hand storyteller from Moscow, woman of the world, multilingual, and our special guest from New York City, Michele Carlo. She is a headliner and performer and theatrical writer, actress, director type, multi-hyphenate in New York City. And she actually featured at the first storytelling event that I was at way back 8 years ago.
Oh, right, in Boston.
at Doyle's,
At
um,
Doyle's.
at the Masswell Story Slam,
Yep.
where
Oh, I remember those days. Oh, I love those days. That was so much fun.
I remember that day I was half in, half out, like the whole time, because that was like my last $10, and I'm like, oh, do I want to do this? Because I was super broke at the time. But I did it, and and I won, and and you were super encouraging that day, and and Nora was super encouraging, and Andrea, and from there I just kept doing it, and
Good.
yeah, and that led to Busted. That's why you always be nice to the new storytellers when they perform, and you guys do that also. Because you want to encourage them to stick around, and some people might stick around for one or two more slams, or maybe they only have one story or two stories in them, but some of them end up sticking around for like 10 years, or starting shows, or or doing other great things, which is so cool. So anyway, I'm going to start with one of my little New York stories. I don't have any super huge New York stories, more anecdotes. One time, this would have been, I guess it would have been around 2002. It was when I was right before I was sports editor at the Daily Bruin at UCLA. I was covering swim and diving beat, women's swimming and diving, and the national championships for the NCAA was held at Hofstra University. They have a Olympic trial pool there. So they flew me out to New York City, and I was staying with my sister on the Upper West Side, with my sister and my brother-in-law and their baby at the time, my niece, who's now at NYU. So I'm hanging out in the Village, or one of those areas. I really don't know all the areas when I go to New York. Like, I always try to go to the Village, and I could be in St. Mark's Place, but it's the Village to me, because it's New York, and and all the excitement, and I get lost very easily, because the streets aren't like LA, where it's all like left, right, east to west, north to south. You have all these kind of weird alleys and turns, and the buildings all kind of look the same. And so what happened was, I was somewhere near the Village and just hanging out. I had maybe 40 or 50 bucks of spending money. It's like my last day in town. And this dude walks up to me, kind of skeevy looking, and he's like, yo, hey, that's my New York voice. Yo, hey, you want to buy I don't know, maybe it's like a Blu-ray or a DVD player, whatever the latest electronic thing was at the time of 2002. And I'm like, well, not really. I'm not an electronic guy. I can't afford it. He goes, no, man, you don't understand. Let me be honest with you. I'm a drug addict, and I'm just going to be honest. I stole this, and I just need money for drugs, and I'm asking 60, but if you can give me 50, I'll take 50. If you can give me 40, I'll take 40, because I'm just going to spend it on drugs, and I have to get rid of it before I go to the shelter, and I got to be there within the hour. So, what do you say? And so, me being a liberal, woke liberal from Los Angeles, oh, okay, he's so honest. That's so righteous of him. He's trying. And of course, being kind of a scumbag who can't refuse a good deal, I'm like, I'll just talk him down to 30. So I talk him down to 30. He's like, thank you. I'm sorry. This is so embarrassing to me to do this. I'm like, oh no, that's okay. That's okay. You do what you do. You be you. And I think you'll kick it someday. And he gives me the box. I give him the $30. He takes off, and I'm like, oh boy. And I run down into the subway because I want to open it up. I'm afraid cops are going to come out because I have this hot electronic item that I got for like 70% off. And so I'm down in the subway, and I open it up, and there's like all papers and stuff. And I'm like, oh, it must be under the papers. I get the papers up, and there's magazines. And I lift the magazines up, there's more papers. And there's no electronics in there, and I was totally taken. And so then I get to my sister's place, and I told my brother-in-law what happened, and he's he was a DA at the time in Manhattan, and he doesn't even look up from like what he's doing. He goes, oh, and he names the scam. There's like a specific con of the papers in a box for the electronics to dupe tourists. And it's like a 3-word scam. And he goes, oh, the paper in a box. And he just kind of goes on with his day. Like he doesn't even bother like looking to me. So anyway, that's my New York subway story. A little mini one. I have a couple little anecdotes like that. Usually just me being, naive, or as my brother-in-law would say, a Vic. I guess that was the hot term in the 90s when he was in the DA. So anyway, that's the warm up. And now we're going to go into the hardcore stories. Thank you. You're too kind. And man, New Yorkers are way kinder than Bostonians give them credit for. Go Giants or Jets. I don't know who you're support. Yeah, New York's a weird place. You get 2 of everything. Every other place we get one team. You guys get choices. Okay, so this first storyteller coming to the stage right now, he's a personal friend of mine. He's from New York City, but he abandoned you guys to go to LA because he can't handle winters. And he likes to walk around with short sleeves and ride the Gold Line. And these days he's more of a passenger, it seems, because he's always posting pictures of cars, which I just find so strange. But I need to fill up the lineup with New Yorkers, and I figured I'd invite him because he's a wonderful storyteller. He's got most of his New York accent remaining. So please welcome Christopher Korbel, and let me put you into the spotlight. And let me take me out of the spotlight. And is your mute on?
The spotlight?
Your spotlight.
Yeah. Hey, quick question, Scott. You have a brother who lives on the Upper West Side?
Sister, and they moved to South Orange.
Where'd they live on the Upper West Side?
70-something Street.
Excellent. 70-something Street. Okay, because everyone from New York City knows, like, Gabby. Like, so this story takes place on 79th Street.
Okay.
And Broadway, which is probably not that far at the time. I'm guessing your brother even lived here. So we're at the Dublin House on 79th and Broadway. This is a special place for me because I had my college interview with a guy who went there to what they call an alumni interview when I was 18. So it's the first bar I ever really went to as a minor and got very, very drunk. And it seems almost fitting that it is now 5 years later, almost roughly around the same time. And I am back in this bar. It's nice because it is right next to the 1 train. So I came down from Forest Hills, which is 2 trains to get there at this hour of the day. And I'm meeting a friend of mine from college who lives in Brooklyn. So it took her 1 train to get there as well. But it's nice, it's equidistance. Now this girl, she was a year behind me in college, so she just got out. And we were good friends in college. I met her when I was a junior. She was a sophomore. I thought we had great chemistry. We could really talk about a lot of stuff. We had really good rapport. I loved hanging out with her so much. And I also really loved hanging out with her boyfriend. So these were wonderful people, which is my way of saying, oh, I had a crush on this girl. Of course I had a crush on this girl. But again, the boyfriend is just a wonderful guy. And the fact that I would go out with like 3 different women with the exact same name as her, I'm sure is just a coincidence. But when I graduated, I never thought I'd see her again. And now, a year since I graduated, we are in this bar. I went to grad school in New Jersey. So in the time that she's been back in town, she actually went out with my best friend from college, but they broke up. And now we're in the bar, we're hanging out for the first time together, really, since college. And we're catching up with old times, And she broke up with her boyfriend when she moved to New York. And it's this weird kind of thing where it's like, I know that she dated my friend very briefly, and it didn't end well, but they're still friends. And I'm not supposed to know that I knew this, but I know that she knows, which is my way of saying, oh yeah, we end up talking about it. And at some point, and I'm definitely thinking it's the beer that gets us in this place. We're like, well, what about us? Because, she just calls me out on your crush, or I call myself out on my crush. But, there's nothing more awkward, I guess, than when someone you've had a crush on for 3 years of your life knows not only that you have a crush, but you're now alone with them in a bar, and you just keep on talking about it, like way too much, because you really know now the cat is so out of the bag. It is so out of the bag, but it's out of the bag in a way, and this is to her credit, not like, oh, I'm so sorry, Chris, or, oh, that's disgusting, but like, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Like, we're both in that weird space. We're like, I don't know. Let's drink some more. I don't know. Let's drink some more. So finally, several pitchers later, we leave the bar. And as we're leaving the bar, I know, like, wow, this is just going to be so painfully awkward the next day. So I said, like, well, should we just see if we like each other that way? It's like what, like kiss? And I'm like, yeah, like kiss. Let's just see. I mean, we're both single people. We're in New York. We're not in college anymore. We're grown-ups. Let's see. Let me kiss you. Okay. Kiss me. And we both were English majors, so we know a kiss should pretty much seal the deal. So I go in there, I kiss her, our lips touch, and for the most unique experience I will ever experience in my life, I feel nothing. She feels nothing. It's not like kissing your grandma, where at least you love your grandma. It's not like kissing a pet dog, where the dog doesn't love you, but you love dogs. No, it's that weird moment where you realize there is zero sexual chemistry between you and this person that you are very good friends with. And then she falls. And when I say she falls, I don't mean not like she falls for me. I mean, she falls down because we're drunk. We are drunky drunks. And she has to take a subway train back to Brooklyn. Now, look, I could put her in a cab, but there's no guarantee she'd get home. And yes, this is before Uber. So who knows? You're just going to have to imagine a life without Uber if you're younger. So I'm like, damn, I'm going to really have to like take the subway back from Manhattan to Brooklyn. So we get on the train. Luckily for her, it's a direct line, but it's still a local train late at night. And she is so drunk. I want to say nothing. She wants to say nothing. But if we say nothing, one or both of us are going to pass out on this train. So we make a long, awkward conversation about anything and everything, except, of course, everything we just talked about, trying desperately to stay awake. Thankfully, I get her to the woman's boarding house that she's staying at in Brooklyn Heights. I hop back on the subway into Manhattan, where I take another train to Forest Hills, which then I have to pick up a third train. And somewhere in this 4-hour odyssey, the last 3 years of this fixation with this woman are playing through my head, along with a kiss. And by the time I get out at Rego Park, 63rd, on the N train, I step outside. Did I say the N train? I think I meant the R train. It's been a while, folks. I realize now I am stone cold sober, and it's still going to be painfully awkward the next time I see this woman again. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Woo, 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 woo. Chris Korbel here. I'm going to make a little thingy there before I put myself back on the spotlight. Replace the spotlight there. Thank you, Chris. That was suitably awkward. And oh man, I felt bad for you there. That ride must have been tough. It felt like a filibuster. And that's why I always carry weed with me when I go out in case I sober up during the long commute home. Because you can ride it out that way. You can extend your beer buzz, because beer only has a short shelf life. But yeah, that's rough. It's weird. I've bumped into people randomly in New York City before. That's one of those weird things about New York. Even though it's so huge, you do bump into people there. When I was there a few years back, I used to take the Chinatown buses, or like I'd either take, I think it was called like Lucky Bus or Ding Dong, something like that. Those are the names of like the Chinatown bus, and they're really sketchy. And then sometimes on this occasion, I took a mega bus, which is the double decker, and the mega bus loads instead of down by Little Italy, which is where the Chinatown buses load up. They load kind of adjacent to Madison Square Garden. I guess it's like along the East River, maybe. Is that the river that I don't know all the rivers proper over there. And so I wanted to get a good slice of pizza. And so, I would just walk past pizza places. That's what I do in New York. I eat a lot of pizza when I'm there. I can't help it. I'm going to eat it probably every day that I'm there, at least once. And so I like looking in the pizza places, and I can tell where the good pizza is. You can tell a good pizza when you see it, and you can smell it and you can see the line. And so I find the place I like. It's right across from Madison Square Garden on the way to the megabus terminal. And there are these three people, and they can't make up their minds what they want to eat. And this is after we're literally standing in front of, how they do it in New York. They have like the glass encasements, and they have all the types all laid out. It has like the name of like cranberry walnut pepperoni or whatever. Well, they don't do that. That's LA style. But pepperoni sausage mushroom, that'd be New York. But it says it, it's all laid out, and they can't make up their minds. So now I start sighing out loud, because that's what I do in lines. I hate lines. I'm so bad in lines. So I'm just like, God, geez, like it's pizza. You fucking get a pepperoni. I'm just like, and then they turn around, and it's like one of my best friends from like grade school, high school, and his two kids who I haven't seen in like, 15, 20 years. And I'm like, hey, Ethan. He's like, hey, Scott, what are you doing here? And I'm like, hey, nothing. And then I didn't make any like angry noise, and I ended up having pizza with them, and it was great pizza. I wish I knew the name of that place. I wish I knew the name of the con where your box is filled with papers instead of like electronics. And I wish I knew the name of that pizza place. And, because all these visits to New York were all before I could like log things into laptops and get it on the, if it was during the like Facebook, I could just go back to like 2011 and be like, that's that pizza place. Yeah. And maybe you guys know, you're from New York, Chris, you're Manhattan, right? What's the great,
there's so many, I hate to say it, man, like seriously, there are so many good pizza places by Madison Square Garden for both, like even Sicilian, Neapolitan. Michele, what's your favorite pizza place by the Garden?
do you go into
Penn
Manhattan,
Station.
or do you just stay in Brooklyn?
She's muted.
I'm unmuted. No, I go into Manhattan. I don't like any food near the Garden.
Yeah. It's
I hear you. If you go like on 8th Avenue, which
Like
is not Broadway.
I would eat like before I went or after I went, or I'd sneak food in.
Yeah.
All right. There's some really good Sicilian places. I'll have to look them up later, but yeah, there's some good pizza. If you just go like a block south or 2 blocks south past Penn Station, there's some really good pizza. If not, there's a Sbarro, which is disgusting. Do not, seriously, folks, don't go to New York City and then go to Sbarro. That is
that's nasty.
Go to Sbarro's when you're on the freeway to New York City and you're in Connecticut and you just have to eat and pee. Then you go to Sbarro. Or if you're in a mall, you just got out of a movie and you don't have time to eat, and all the other places in the food pavilion are closed, then you go to Sbarro. I love talking about food. That's like a side thing that we talk about on the show, probably too much.
Pizza's great.
I know, I love pizza. Pizza,
but
it's a
where you live, Michele, pizza's wonderful.
No, pizza's like sex. Even when it's just okay, it's still great.
Well, that's because you don't live in LA.
Oh yeah, I don't live in
You'd be like, oh, actually, pizza does kind of suck sometimes.
There's really, what we put on a pizza in Los Angeles, you don't want to know.
Yeah.
Like
people
cheeseless, breadless, and sauceless.
I have a friend, he's from Elizabeth, New Jersey. He has one of my favorite pizza places in LA, Vito's. And one of the things Vito brags about is that his pizza is 100% real cheese. It's like that's a bragging point, Is that a hand up or a high five?
That is like talk to the hand because like we ain't listening.
It's weird because New York, I think, is more of like a walking city, a city where you can actually get around more because the public transportation is so connected compared to like LA. Like when in my mind, like Brooklyn would be like the Valley in Los Angeles. And if you live in the Valley, you don't really go to the other side of the hill, like to downtown or Hollywood. And if you live in like Long Beach, down in the South Bay, that would be like, I don't know, Staten Island or Bronx or something. Because LA is so huge that like if you live in one section, you're just not going to the other sections because your section already has like a million people.
Yeah, we don't have like a center, you know what I'm saying? Like in New York City, like you would go to Madison Square Garden to see something. You would go into the village. You would go up into like Williamsburg, but now everyone out here, we're like one Jersey suburb. Yeah. Literally. Wherever the biggest mall is, that's your home base. And
and where New York, it seems like all the trains go into the center. In LA, they really don't. It can be really challenging from a lot of parts of the city to get to the other parts of the city if you don't drive, especially on a Sunday like today, where the Academy Awards are there and they're probably shutting down the main hub.
At Union Station, think about that for a second. At Union Station, the Academy Awards stole your idea of doing Busted at Union Station by hijacking it.
This is my Busted Academy Awards story that actually got someone in the audience to write me a letter asking me about my deep-seated anger towards motorists. And if I do see a therapist, I should discuss it with them. So one day, I'm very militant about crosswalks, Michele. They know it because they've been to the show in LA. But as an Uber pedestrian, I'm very guarded about my safety and my crosswalk. That belongs to me, the pedestrian, and my pedestrian friends. And I went to a coffee shop across the street from the Chinese Theater the day of the Academy Awards, and a limousine came by and it was speeding as I was walking out, and the light was changing. And the limousine had like the tinted windows, and I could tell by the limo that this was an awards ceremony car. And I knew by the acceleration of the limo that they had no intention of stopping for the walk signal that I was going to cross the street with. So I was like, okay, this limo thinks they're better than me and they don't have to stop. Well, I'm going to take this coffee and I'm going to chuck it at the limo. And so as it drove by, I had my wrist cocked back like Dan Marino, and I just went whoosh, and I threw it, and it hits the back passenger window, and it just goes whoosh, and the car was speeding. So he had like another 50 yards past the crosswalk, and I stood up in the middle of the crosswalk and I screamed to him, "Respect the crosswalk, motherfucker!" And the dude hit the brakes and just went, "Arr!" And like skid marks, like where it kind of slides and stuff, right in the middle of Hollywood Boulevard, in front of the Chinese Theater, Jimmy Kimmel Theater, and the Kodak Theater. And I'm just standing there in the center, like, "Arr!" and I realized this dude's going to turn around, and he's probably a big guy because he's driving celebrities. So I just turned around and I ran as fast as I could, serpentine across
like the in-laws.
Yeah, until I found a suitable alley. That was one of the fastest sprints. Like if I was doing the NFL Combine, I would have got drafted. That's my Academy Awards story. Has nothing to do with New York except for rage. So we're going to keep this show going. Busted next week returns to Los Angeles. That'll be 7 p.m. Pacific time. And then the following week, we're going to stay on the West Coast and we're going to go to San Francisco. So that's 2 weeks on the West Coast. San Francisco is home of our sister show, the Muni Diaries. So I'm hoping to make some contact with them. And also one of my good friends from Boston, from the old storytelling scene. She moved up to the Bay Area. So I'm hoping that I can get her involved with that show as well. And probably some Busted Los Angeles regulars who moved down from San Francisco to LA over the years. So we're going to keep this show going. Our next storyteller, she's a woman of the world. She speaks 55 languages, and she's a professional translator and linguist and writer and storyteller and bus rider and anecdotalist. Please welcome to the computer screen, Katya Duft. Yeah, and I'm gonna spotlight, and you're full on spotlight now. Yeah, Katya, it's all you.
Yeah, hello. Sorry for my boring background, but oh well.
Boring.
Boring. So, unlike my story. So that's a really old story.
Poster on the wall.
Yeah. So that's a really old story from 1998 when I came to the US for the second time only. The point of my visit was to spend the summer in near Chicago working at a summer camp. But at first I had to come to New York to get orientation for the camp. And the orientation was at Columbia University. So I flew from Moscow to New York with half a dozen Russian girls. And after we got the orientation, we asked what we can go see that is not too far away. And they told us, yeah, you can go take a walk, just be careful because Harlem is real close to Columbia University. If you want to get to Manhattan, if you go see Empire State Building, maybe a girl should take the subway. We said, oh, okay, but at first we want to go explore the neighborhood. And of course they told us, don't go to Harlem, but that's exactly where we ended up. So we go down the street and then we realize we're in Harlem and we don't see anything bad or suspicious, and people like walk towards us and they all smile or wave at us. We smile or wave back. Until we get into a small shop, because I realized I can't go to Empire State Building because the batteries of my camera are completely dead. So I need a new set of batteries. So we stop in a small shop and the owner turns out to be Armenian, because when we go in, he's like, oh, girls, oh, nice. Where are you from? How long are you here for? So we talk to him, and within like a couple minutes, he starts flirting mercilessly and saying, oh, there are 5 of you. That's so entertaining. Let me take you all to dinner. And we're like, no. We're just really going to, we're going to Empire State Building and tomorrow we're flying to Chicago and we cannot stay, sorry. So he sells me a set of batteries and we're about to leave the shop when he grabs one of the girls by the elbow and threateningly tells her, no, honey, you're staying here. You're going to dinner with me. So she starts screaming, we pull on her and all 5 of us kind of like roll out of the shop and start running. And we don't know the direction we're running to because we're just so scared that he'll chase us. So we run and run and run and run, and then we see a policeman on a horse. And as a Russian person, we are all scared of police, especially when the policeman sees us on his horse and he starts like approaching us, we keep running. And we know it's a terrible idea to run from a policeman, but we cannot help it. So we find a little tiny street, tiny alley, and we hide behind some trash cans. And so once every 10 seconds, we stick our head out. At some point, the policeman stops right in front of us, but he cannot see us, but his horse can. The horse looks straight at us. But lucky for us, the horses cannot talk, so the policeman just leaves. We go back to a big street, we look at the map, and we realize we're actually not far away from a train station. But we were also overly excited and overly scared after this little situation that happened to us. We're like, really? An Armenian guy tried to attack us? What's going on? That's not the kind of people they told us to be afraid of in New York. And so we look at the map and realize there is a station nearby. But the girl who was grabbed by the Armenian guy, she says, guys, I'm traumatized. Can we just take a taxi? And we were like, look, it was very naive of us to try to console her that way, but we told her, look, you know how the Moscow subway is? It's so beautiful. You know, there is marble everywhere. It's all super clean and nice. And like, it's safe. I mean, even if we have some drunk people on the subway, they're usually harmless. They just sleep in the seats. And she's like, okay, fine, you convinced me. So we get on the subway. And the first shocking thing is when we look at the map, it's nothing like Moscow subway. It's just so many stations going in all the directions. And since they told me my English was the strongest of them all, they gave me the map and they say, Katya, your task is to figure out how to get to the Empire State Building. And while I stand there with the map, we look around and we see graffiti on the walls. We don't see any marble. We don't see anything as pretty as Moscow subway. So we start getting all shocked about it. And there is a bunch of people rushing by. There is loud music playing. It smells like piss. It smells like alcohol. And my friends say, like, wait a minute, we thought you're not supposed to drink on the subway. And I said, well, I mean, probably someone just, drank outside, came into a subway, burped, farted, whatever, all kinds of smells. And girls keep telling me, you know what, let's go back up and take a taxi because we already don't like it. This subway is not even remotely like Moscow subway. We are not going. And they said, girls, come on, seriously, I don't have a lot of money. I want to try I want to try New York subway. This is something I've read about and I want to experience it for myself. We are only going to be in New York till tomorrow. Tomorrow we're flying out to Chicago. Let's go. So we finally find the right way to go. We go in, we get on the train. And the first thing we see is a couple of drunk people actually not sitting on the benches drunk like in Moscow, but actually stretching on the floor. And in Russia, traditionally, if you sit on the floor, this is terrible manners. So my girlfriend started going like, oh God, this is going to be so much worse than than Moscow subway. So we all get in this small corner and kind of like experience the subway from the corner. And just as usually the way it happens when you're afraid of something, it happens even worse and even stronger. At the next station, a couple that is fighting gets in and they like start from just screaming at each other. And then the woman actually moves into our corner and the man approaches us and he keeps screaming in her face and she starts beating him with her purse. That's when the girl who was attacked by the Armenian in the shop starts crying and she tells me, Katya, you have no compassion for my plight. Why did we take the fucking subway? I was traumatized once, now I'm traumatized twice, and this is all because of you. And I'm like, sorry. So I hold her, give her a big hug and say, please, just wait. 3 more stations. Hopefully we'll be soon out and go to the Empire State Building. And she's like, I'm really hoping nothing's gonna happen. And of course she jinxed it. So one station before we needed to get off, one of these drunk guys who was on the floor woke up, said something like, where the fuck I am, and barfed right in front of us. Needless to say, after we visited the Empire State Buildings, we took a taxi back to the Columbia University dorms. And that girl didn't talk to me for like the whole time we were traveling to a camp together. Fortunately, we were assigned to different camps when we didn't have to see each other anymore. But there are high chances she was traumatized for life. Thank you.
Yeah,
Hey, the greatest city in the world.
you got the whole New York experience in one ride.
Yeah, good times right away.
But we do love, I just want to say New York is the greatest city in the world.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud to have been there and played it. I love it so much.
Yes, and we went to a transit museum in Brooklyn. That was a lot of fun.
Cool. Yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing. That was.
Yeah,
think-
about 5 years ago.
It's so
Yeah.
funny how you're like trying to hide from the cops and the horse could smell you.
Yeah, yeah, she definitely saw us.
I smell 5 Russians. You know, I'm a horse. You know, I
It's like,
smell
I'm a horse,
everything.
I recognize Russians. Yeah, so it was kind of funny.
You're like sitting there going like, shut up, horse.
Yeah.
I actually ended up stuck in Harlem once when I was 18. I went to this college in upstate New York, Sullivan County Community College, which I flunked out of twice, 2 semesters in a row. It's nowhere near my transcripts. This is when I was 18, had no business being in college at that time. And I decided I think it was my first Thanksgiving. And so my mom sent me some money to take a Greyhound from Loch Sheldrake, where the college was in the Catskill Mountains, to Penn Station or wherever I would catch the Chinatown bus from, and then I would take that home to Boston. But me being an idiot, I thought I would save that like $18 or whatever the Greyhound cost was from the Catskills to New York, and I'd keep that for like spending money because I was a broke imbecile. And so I decided to hitchhike from Loch Sheldrake to Penn Station. And the actual plan was I was going to then hitchhike the rest of the way to Boston and just keep all the money, you know. And but the first part of the ride was such a challenge that I just decided to take the Chinatown bus, because at the time, you know, I wasn't just a punk. I looked like a punk. You know, I looked like an imbecile. I had very long, raggedy hair, had crazy sunglasses on that only like an 18-year-old could think was cool. And I was carrying all my dirty laundry in a garbage bag because I figured I would take advantage of it when I got to my parents' house to do laundry. And it was filthy laundry, you know, because I was a freshman in college and an idiot, you know. And so somehow some dude picked me up, of course, you know, and he drives me all the way down to New York, and the guy's kind of going deaf, you know, so he's speaking in a loud voice like this the whole time, which is kind of, you know, stressful, you know, because it's just a little car, and he's asking where I'm going, and I'm trying to make small talk with him, and he's going, you know, I'm going to Lake so-and-so, going trout fishing. And then he's going like speckled trout. He's going like this, speckled, like to, I guess, symbolize like the speckles on the trout's body. And then he crosses the George Washington Bridge. And I've like never been to New York before. He goes, well, we're here. And he lets me off, like literally at the base of the George Washington Bridge in Manhattan, which I guess is like Harlem or Washington Heights or so. I'm not
It's
sure.
Washington Heights. You were in Washington Heights.
Right.
So
Yeah, the Heights.
So I don't know the area, and I'm wandering. I still don't know if it's, I assume it's not a great area, because the road that I walked down, at least in the 80s, you know, Koch time, you know, I walked down this road with my garbage bag and my pack of Magma cigarettes. They were like the cheapo cigarettes at the time. And I'm walking down this road, and there's all these piles of rubble, and there are all these people wearing the same exact outfit of like green camo pants and like green camo tank tops, and they're all standing on both sides of the road, kind of like this, like with their arms crossed. And then 3 of them start walking up the road at me, like right up the middle, and they're the only people on the road. And I'm thinking like, oh, this must be a gang, because I'd seen the Warriors, you know, and there's like 86, and they're all dressed exactly the same. So I mean, obviously, you know, and so they walk up to me, and they just say, got a cigarette? Like the one in the middle goes, got a cigarette? And so I go, here's 3, like one for each of you. Because, you know, of course, if he said, give me the whole pack, I would have given it to him. Give me your dirty laundry. Here, you know, here you go, sir. But, you know, I gave him the 3 cigarettes, and then I said, hey, which way is the subway? And he goes, just, you know, turn this way and take a right. I go, thank you. And I just go walking, and that was like the entire conversation that we had. Because they probably had he probably thought I was homeless, I'm walking with a garbage bag, but meanwhile, in my mind, I'm thinking, wait a minute, they're setting me up to get jumped. And I'm going to do the walk, and then I'm going to walk, and then the whole gang's going to jump me and take my laundry, like my possessions. So when I get to the place where I said to take a right, I take a left. and I just wander, and there's no subway, So then I have to ask someone else, excuse me, how do I get to the subway? And they put me back in the direction that the gang members told me to go. Because if they wanted to jump me, they would have just jumped me in the middle of that road where there was nobody but gang members, It's just really stupid. But that was like that was probably my first New York adventure. And that was the only time I ever hitchhiked to New York. I learned that lesson, got through unscathed. Yeah. And now it's time for our headliner. I'm not even doing any more house cleaning. It's headliner time. This is a true headliner. She headlined the first show I ever did in Boston in storytelling at Doyle's Pub in Jamaica Plain for Mass Mouth. And she's done tons of storytelling all over the country. What are your, I'm sure you've done what? Have you done Mothman Stage by now?
Yeah.
Risk, I'm sure you've done Risk.
Yes.
Like all the big shows, Stories from the Stage. You done that?
Yes.
Okay. Any others you want to throw out there? One person
Done
show,
'em.
fish out of agua.
I've told a lot of stories in a lot of places.
I saw a cat video of a Bombay cat that can say agua.
Agua.
The person runs the water but makes the cat say agua.
Oh, it's a Latinx cat. Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Latinx Bombay cat. I guess half Latinx, half Bombay Burmese.
So Scott, I'm so thrilled to be doing this show tonight because the last time you booked me for a show, I broke my ankle the night before.
I know. I remember that. That's hardcore.
Talk about busted.
I know. And I was walking.
8 weeks in a friggin' cast. I on you.
I fell in a hole once walking on a sidewalk. So, hey man, doors and sidewalks can be tough.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, it's headliner time. We're bringing her up to the stage. She's a fish out of agua, but she's not out of agua when she's on our bus because everybody's in the water on our bus, which doesn't make sense, but it kind of does. Please welcome our big fish, Michele, Carlo. Yeah. You're on the spotlight.
Oh my God, I'm a big fish. Woo! Okay, so when it comes to being a New Yorker, some people say you need to be born here. Some people say you need to live here for 20 years. Some people say whatever. But whether you've lived here a lifetime, decades, months, seconds, there are 3 irrefutable rules that you have to remember when you're on the subway. 1, when you're a New Yorker, you line up the exact door. I can't even point behind me. You line up the door of the subway car to where the exit is and where you're getting off on the station. So you could just like run out, right? Because like, why should you spend like an extra minute like walking? Okay, the other rule of the subway is if you see somebody that does the rule of 3, they're not wearing shoes, they smell bad, and they're talking to themselves, you stay the fuck away. And the 3rd rule is if it's rush hour or almost any other time of day, and the train is crowded, and you see an empty train car, don't get on the train. Do not get on that car.
Why?
Okay, we'll find out. Espérate. So anyway, it's a typical Saturday, and I'm on my way up to the Bronx to see my mom and my brother. And I'm coming from Brooklyn. And of course, I'm on Latin people time, which is LPT, which is a subdivision of CPT, which is colored people time. But the Latin people time causes you to leave your house at the time you're supposed to be where you're going. So basically, I'm late. So I take my train and I change for the number 6 train at Bleecker Street. And I start walking up to the front of the train because I want to make sure that the train car, the doors align with the exit when I I'm getting off the train like an hour later. So the train pulls up and I'm texting, I'm on my phone because, you know, this was not that long ago. And as soon as I walk into the train car, I realize I have made the most fundamental mistake. The car is empty, except for four, let's call them gentlemen. They are the color of dirt because you can't tell what they were originally. They're just like lounging around and nobody's wearing shoes and they're all talking to themselves and they all smell really bad. And I'm just like, oh God, what did I get into? So like, I'm just like praying that there's like this invisible force shield around me. So like, they don't notice me and like start harassing me or anything. So I'm like standing by the door like this. And when the train pulls into Astor Place, I jump out and I run into the next car, the second car, which is mad freaking crowded because it seems this little dance has been going on since Brooklyn Bridge. People go into the first car. They see that it's occupied by denizens of the deranged, and then they go into the second car where everybody is laughing. So this continues to go on. Now the number 6 is going local. This goes on stop by stop by stop. Every single stop, somebody gets on that first car, they bug out, they run into the second car. And by the time we get to, let's say Grand Central, the conductor's been alerted that there's something going on in the first car. So he's blowing that like big chuga chuga horn. And like he's asking for police, but this is, come on, this train is going to the Bronx. It's Saturday, there ain't no freaking cops around. So these denizens of the deranged start becoming emboldened when people run into their car. And I look through like the door, like do you see behind me that door where you could see into the next car? And they took off their pants. So now these 4 denizens of the deranged are pantsless. And they're like having a party. One of them is dancing on the seat. One of them is twirling on the pole. One of them is going like this. One of them goes to the door between the cars, takes his junk in his hands and starts shaking it at people. And we're just like, oh my God. So this is going on and on and on. And it's like Grand Central, 59th Street, 72nd Street, 86th Street. The train pulls into 103rd Street. And this very young blonde woman gets on the train car. And they just light on her like flies on a dog poop. They're just like surrounding her and they're naked and they smell bad. I know because I was in that car. And this young girl, which I could see because I'm watching what's going on, her eyes just go like this. And she's just like, she's frozen. She doesn't know what to do. And this man that is, obviously he's going to be like the savior. He opens the door to the car that I'm in. He opens the door to the car that she's in. He reaches in and he pulls her in and she ends up standing right next to me. And she's, like I said, she's in shock. She's frozen. She's trembling. She's shaking. She's maybe 22, 23, 24 years old at most. And I can see that the stars of Kansas are still in her prairie blue eyes. She's wearing braids, damn it. And her hair is the color of corn silk. And she just looks like, she could have come from Bayonne, New Jersey, but she looked like the poster child from like Dorothy's Kansas, Midwest with the stars coming to New York. And then I started thinking to myself, wait a second, she got on the train at 103rd Street. 103rd Street is Spanish Harlem. That's where my family is. My family's from Puerto Rico. When they came from Puerto Rico, they lived in Spanish Harlem. There was like no white people living in Spanish Harlem. But then of course, the gentrification starts coming in and people of all walks of life move into a neighborhood. But then I'm wondering, well, wait a second, why is she getting on the train? Why does she get on the train at 103rd Street? And why is she going to the Bronx? I mean, I don't know. Maybe she got gentrified out of 103rd Street and she was going to gentrify the South Bronx. Maybe she was a candy striper going to the hospital to like read stories to homebound seniors or something. Maybe she was working at a Head Start program. I have no idea, and I'm never going to know, because she turns to me and she says, "Is the subway always like this?" And I just put my evil on, I just like project on her everything of every gentrification, every family member of mine that had to leave their neighborhood. And every time I had to move, and I just look at her and I go, yeah, getting like to be there 1980s all over again. You're lucky you weren't stripped and left on the platform with your throat slit from ear to ear. And she just looks at me like this. And she runs out the train at 110th Street. And I don't know what happens to her after that. And the train just keeps going. At 125th Street, cops finally come. The denizens of the deranged are removed from the train. And I finally get up to the Bronx, up to my mom's house. And my brother's like, you were like an hour late. Where the hell were you? And I was like, oh, I just spent some time convincing a very nice young woman that she made a mistake moving to New York. Now, this happened slightly before the pandemic. So I don't know if she stayed or if she left. But I can say one thing. If you stayed, Blondie, in my book, you're a New Yorker. Thanks.
Yeah, she left.
No, she could have been tough. You know, people sometimes whatever. Is the subway always like this?
Yeah, it's funny. I like the background that you have there. I love the 80s subway personally. I think it's better with, I always thought graffiti and all that stuff was interesting. And I just want to thank you for participating on the show today. And that is Busted Apple. That is our New York show. So let's hear it for everyone that was here today. First of all, Michele, Carlo, Christopher Korbel, Katya, Duft, and I'm Scott Schultz. I knew that the New York City stories would be more extreme than LA. And you guys definitely didn't disappoint. I think New York subway is like LA stories on PCP. It's not even like on crack. It's on PCP. It's just, and oddly enough, this is the second week in a row that we've had a naked passenger story. Like I think we went like years without a naked passenger, and then last week we had one, and now we have another one. So maybe we have like a winning streak starting out.
Denizens of the deranged.
Yeah. Well, next week we're back in LA, so I bet we'll go nudity free. But then we're in the Bay Area, and at that point, I think they might all be nude. There's a good chance, because that's a hippie town. So there's no rules in San Francisco. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna change it back to me there, so that way you don't have to like stare at the screen smiling while I talk for 20 minutes.
Good. Now I can pick my nose now.
You'd be like, oh, that dude won't shut up. And play with your cat. I was hoping your cat would run across the screen on the train.
No, I fed them right before the show, so they're conked out.
That's cool. And so anyway, if you have any other stories that take place in other cities, you're welcome to participate in some of our future shows. Like I said, we're going to be going to different cities over the coming weeks. I got a Zoom subscription for an entire year, so we're going everywhere. This is gonna be like a 40-city tour. Gonna experiment with like size of lineup. So some days we might only have 2 guests. Some day we might do some one-on-one stuff. Some days we might have free-for-alls with the open mic. We have just like this portable moving stage theater. Like this is our little Carnegie Hall on wheels, sorta, kinda. Even though we're not really on wheels, we're on virtual wheels. Anyway. Thank you guys for participating, and for you guys out in YouTube land, thank you for joining us, being part of the tour. You can check out all our other videos on the channel. We have full shows now. We have partial stories. We have a whole bunch of videos from when we had our Drone Box web show, and we'll be back to the live show soon enough. And boy, I can't wait.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Always been an outdoor show. We've had more than 100 live outdoor shows. So we're going to do outdoor shows. We're going to do them in LA. We'll do them in Boston. We'll do them in New York. Outdoor.
Oh, that would be lovely. Awesome.
I definitely want to take it to New York. And thank you for being our first New Yorker, because I wanted to get a feel for the city. And, now I'm like, oh yeah, everybody's got stories from New York and they're all fucking crazy. And that's what we like, we like the excitement. And, it's weird because in LA, a lot of our stories, like it's the shocking ones are the ones that we remember. but it's the community ones that actually keep people coming back. And I know that the shocking stories in New York are going to be incredibly shocking because I've been listening to the stories today, and I read the Times and I read the Post headlines. And but I know that the community stories that are going to take place in New York are also going to be equally amazing, and I really look forward to hearing those. And I'm going to make a special effort to take this show back to virtual New York sometime again later in the spring, because our budget is limitless. We can go to New York, and then we can go to like Russia, and then we could do like busted, Burma. Well, I don't know. There's probably no stories there. Busted India. I mean, I have a couple friends from there. They got some stories. So we can take this and go nuts. Anyway, thank you guys so much for participating. Thank you all out in YouTubeville for watching us. For those of you who get around in your different cities by bus, train, bicycle, skateboard, walking, be aware of your surroundings. And for those of you who do drive, the 3 or 4 of you in New York and everyone in Los Angeles, please respect the crosswalks. Thank you, and good night.
Nice to meet you, Katya. Bye, Chris. Bye, Scott.
More than dry.
Thank